All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to STEAM Project Management. My name is Hiba, and I'll be the host for today's panel. We will give it a few seconds before we officially start, but if you wanted to pop in the chat where you're joining us from, we would love to hear and see where you're coming from. And we will start our panel maybe in a few more seconds, actually. All right, everybody, we'll get started. So hello again, if you're just joining us. My name is Hiba, and I'll be the host for today's panel, which is STEAM Project Management. I would like to begin by gratefully acknowledging that Science World is located on the traditional and unceded land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We will start today with a quick introduction from our amazing group of mentors, followed by a hosted discussion. If you have any questions for any of the mentors, please feel free to put those in the chat at any time. Our technician today is Chelsea, who will be monitoring the chat. If you have any technical issues, they would be happy to assist. We ask that any of the comments that you put in the chat or any questions that you ask be respectful and relevant to the topics that are being discussed on hand. Now it is time to meet our mentors. Let's start by going around and doing a brief introduction before we jump right into questions. Mentors, if you could turn on your cameras, we will bring you up on screen. And awesome, that was so quick. That was awesome. So hello, everyone. Hello, mentors. So let's get each of you to let us know maybe your name, maybe your job title, or a little bit about where you work, and the thing that you love the most about your career. So Claire, you're on my screen first, so I will throw the ball over to you.
Yeah, hello. My name's Claire, and I'm a product manager at Safe Software. I'd say one of the things that I love most about my job is probably that it gets me to learn about a whole bunch of different types of products, and just I get to host and I get to facilitate conversations across peoples, and that's always really interesting.
Awesome, thank you. Vaishaki, you're the next person on my screen.
Okay, hi, my name is Baishaki Datta, and I work as a project manager in Equitas Therapeutics. So, what we do is a biotech company which specializes in producing lipid nanoparticles, which is kind of an important component for any kind of RNA-aided therapeutics. And what I like most about my work is right now gene therapy is kind of gaining a lot of heights, and lipid nanoparticle is a very essential component in that. And yeah, I just enjoy how much our work helps in the global research, and yeah, I feel so good about it.
That's lovely, thank you. And last but not least, Stella.
Hi, I'm super jealous of Vaishaki. She's got some very exciting skills. I am Dalith Hildebrand. I do also work in software. I am Senior Manager Program Management here at Hootsuite. I have a team of about 10 project managers that I work with on a regular basis, and we spend a lot of time trying to reduce friction and create the right kind of planning processes and projects within our product organization and Hootsuite as a whole. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. I think everybody has skills that everybody should be jealous of, so don't worry about that.
I want to learn so much from Dalit, how she manages her team.
I know, just hearing the 10 project managers Yeah, awesome. Well, I have a set of questions for everybody that I am personally very curious about, but I'm sure everybody out there has many burning questions that they are also curious about. So, for the viewers that are listening at home, feel free to populate any questions that you have in the chat. And just a reminder to make sure that you keep the comments or questions relevant and respectful to our discussion that we're having now. So I think I cheated a little bit, and I heard a little bit of stories of everybody from the background, kind of before we started the session for all those at home. And I was super intrigued to hear, and I'm sure the viewers at home will be too, about kind of how you got started in the career that you're in, because I think all of you come from such different fields, and a little bit of a spoiler alert, maybe very different backgrounds as well to your careers. So maybe we'll go backwards this time. So Dalith, if we wanted to start with you, how did you get started in the career that you did, that you're in right now? Yeah.
Thank you. Well, so originally I wanted to be a psychologist detective, but it turns out that the series of books that I was reading means that, it's largely a fictional kind of a position. So I was in the 11th and 12th grade, and I had just the most incredible technology teacher. He actually won an award for teaching excellence in Canada, and he would walk into classrooms and you would never say like, "Oh, hey, Mr. McCain." Mr. McCain, call it if you're out there still. He would never say hi, Mr. McCain. He'd never assign us homework. He would walk in and he would role play customer experiences. And so we had to get all of our assignments and all of our work out of Mr. McCain, who was now role playing some particular business person that we were working with. And so that was a lot of fun. We learned a lot about how to present ourselves and how to start speaking about technology between technology people and, business people. And that's really got me started. So I have a computer information systems degree from the University of the Fraser Valley. I'm a business minor. I'm a terrible programmer. And so when I started in university, I discovered really quickly that actually I was much better at sort of bridging that gap between technology and business folks or non-technical folks. I understood enough that I could really kind of put the pieces together and sort of help do that type of thing. So I've been project managing for the most of my career. I've taken some brief forays into management of developers, into operations management positions and that type of thing. But I've sort of been brought back home and yet also brought every kind of scrap of experience that I've had since, the beginning, at this particular position at Hootsuite. So as I mentioned, I have a team of project managers now, which is really exciting. I still project manage myself, and then also do a lot of program management work within dev teams. So it's fun. It's super fun. I'll pass it to somebody else and see about them.
Thank you. And just before we pass it on, for the viewers at home, could you elaborate what dev team is, or what a dev team is?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. So when I say dev team, what I mean is teams of software developers. So I've worked almost entirely in the SaaS sphere, and SaaS means software as a service. So that means not software that you get on disks or that you download and then use, but things that you would use sort of in the cloud, if you will. So if you're used to maybe Google Docs, or you use Microsoft Teams at school, those are both SaaS products that are provided sort of on the fly as you go. And so having kind of grown up and grown my career in that SaaS process, that means I have a lot of experience, working with developers who are building the software, or sort of the platform engineers that create the layers of technology that we build our software onto. But thanks, Eva, for clarifying there.
Perfect. Thank you. Vaishaki, why don't we ask you next? How did you get started in your career?
Sure. So it wasn't planned. Disclaimer first, it just happened. So as a student, I was very interested in biology from the very beginning. And so for me, it was an easy decision to go start with my biology as undergrad. And it kind of got me intrigued how all this life and organism, they work together in coherence. And I went further for my studies to UK in molecular biology, and I wanted to get into research. So I did my PhD in infectious disease from Germany. And during the last phase of my research, I got to understand that how communication, or communicating the research that we are doing, is very important, because it's not only what you do in your lab, but what is the impact of it. That's very important. And when I was drafting my own research paper, I I got into the nuances of it and I really loved it. So that's something I did for quite a few years after that. And I started managing project on scientific communications as well. And when I moved from India to Canada here in 2020, Equitas was a company I looked as, the perfect place to combine both my scientific know-how and my communications background and my project management experience. So I started working here, and in my current role, I work with different departments, because in research you have like different departments. They are working on different bits, but then you have to coordinate between them, like what are the things required and what are the timelines. And you work with a lot of partners. Like right now we are working with a lot of partners, so we also have to maintain coordination between them. So it's understanding the nuances of science and how it has to be done, but at the same time making it practical. Like if it's a time bound thing and is a like you have to do certain things. So it's kind of combining both these elements. That's a little bit of contrast to what I've done earlier, but that brings the excitement as well.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
that's awesome. It's really nice to hear. And then last but not least, Claire, we'd love to hear your journey and how you got started in your career, and a little bit of what led you to where you are now in Safe Software.
Yeah, for sure. So my journey is, I'd say, like totally different than both of yours. I originally started in arts. So it was I did a degree in studio arts in university. So that meant painting, sculpture, all things fine arts. And that was after having a lot of debate with myself at first in high school about whether I should go the arts route or the science route. And right after high school, I actually started, I think I was 1 month in a science degree, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna follow my heart and just go for arts. So I continued doing that, and then out of art school, I went into graphic design and entered tech, and got really passionate about what tech was doing. Really curious about it as well, and started kind of looking for my career path within it. I am also a terrible developer. I went to a coding boot camp and did not do so well, but I kind of got the knack that I was also quite good at connecting people, and that wherever I got curious, I could help people go far with it. So that was one of the first inklings that product management, which has a lot of project management within it, was the right route. And that's what I do now. And I really love the intersection of figuring out what the users want, what they need, and then also working with developers for exactly how it's going to happen, and working with UX and design to figure out kind of like what's the best way to make it happen as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so a very through three very different journeys kind of leading up to where you are. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about maybe kind of skills and typical days at work. So we'll throw it over to Vaishaki. So I am curious, what kind of skills do you think do you use most in your job, and what kinds of skills kind of have you found has really helped you in your career?
So I'll say technical skills, of course, they're necessary, but at the same time, over the years, I've understood how soft skills are very important for any kind of job that you do. And I find that most in the project management role that I'm now. So communications is a big part of it, and it's not only like verbal, it's written communication as well, because the devils are in details. So whenever you're writing, you have to be very particular. And at the same time, I've also learned that listening is a very big part, because you learn so much by listening to people who have been in this craft for a long, listening to other people, describing stuff. So I believe communication is a very big part of project management, because you have to learn and listen from people, and then you have to slowly, you have to find your voice, and then you have to articulate that. And and another thing is like keeping having an eye for details. That is also very important, because misses and slips are the thing that's going to cost you a lot in the long run. So I'll say, develop your technical skills, but if it's project management that you're something you're interested in, I would say invest in your soft skills, your communications, in your eye for details, interacting with people, learning to know how people work, because projects are delivered by people, not by machines. So if you get to know people and what makes them work and what doesn't make them work, and have that empathy, I think that's have been the most important learning for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Such great tidbits of advice in there for everybody. Dallas, I'm wondering what kind of, or during a day at work, what does a typical day look like? Or do you even have a typical day? I know it's.
There's no such thing as a typical day. I mean, I think that the differences between working from home and working in the office obviously is sort of interesting. Hootsuite has really gone to this neat concept of having perches. So we are entirely open to being remote all of the time. But you may also choose to go in and perch at the office. We have sort of like a desk check-in and that type of thing. And the perches are meant to be places that you're excited to go to. So you're meant to like really desire to go and collaborate. And so I guess for me, like a major difference is like now I work from home entirely. I have a decently long commute. So I tend to only choose to go into the office when I wish to. And when I have like, collaboration with people who will be face to face, there's no point in me driving in if I'm just going to collaborate on the screen with somebody at the moment. So that's what works best for me and for my family. My days start early. So I'm Pacific time, but I work with people in Europe and different time zones. So that means that I'm often, starting at somewhere between 7 a.m. And sort of maybe 8, depending on what's going on that particular day. I have jam-packed meetings. I will say I'm generally jam-packed with meetings, but it's all really exciting stuff, right? You're trying to move and untangle these really difficult problems forward, or to kind of sort out, like Vishaki said about the details, right? So I think if I were to add like one thing you would need, a skill that you need, soft skills for sure, but like organization, like holy moly, do you need to be organized?
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Claire, finally, I was really, really curious. When you first started at the job that you're in Safe Software, what is something that surprised you about it?
Yeah, I'd say maybe one of the I'd say maybe one of the things would be how open to changes and kind of like innovation the job is. I've had a lot of really great roles where I've been able to kind of like make my own way in a way. But Save specifically has been really open to new process and is kind of still in that startup mode. I think that's pretty common though as well within the tech industry. It's really like if you find a problem to solve or something that you think is worth your time, people will kind of empower you to go forward and have full autonomy to figure out those problems. So it's always really great to. I shouldn't be as surprised, I think, but it's always great to see that there's like the full backing and everyone's really in to jump in on a problem and help as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And just a reminder for our viewers at home, if you did have any burning questions for any of our mentors, feel free to pop it in the chat. And just a reminder to keep those questions just relevant and respectful. Awesome. So now I have some pretty challenging questions for everyone. So I'm hoping everyone can pitch in or feel free to jump in if you'd like to. But Dallas, I might start with you. So I'm sure that throughout your career or when you've talked to other people about your job, they might have some misconceptions about what you do, or they might be not sure. So what are common misconceptions that people have about your job or about the field that we're in? And what do you think we can do to combat those misconceptions and maybe communicate more effectively?
Yeah, hilariously, and often the biggest problem that I have is really just describing the tech industry as a starting point. So, people are kind of, generally are like, oh, I understand, you organize people and you get things done on timelines and that type of thing. But I'd say there's two overall kind of big hurdles to get to. If I were to explain my job to my grandma, it's just an entirely different world, right? So, I've worked in companies that are e-commerce focused. I've worked in companies that are like about mobile enablement. Like there's just been all kinds of things. And so to speak to your grandparents and be like, oh, I do this work, they like, unless they have that framework of like what it means to use those sort of technical elements, they just don't really get it. And so you spend a lot of time going like, well, we do this, and they, no, but what do you do? Well, but what do you do, right? So that, I think, is kind of the first problem. The second thing I think is more of a comment on the state of project management as a whole. And so, I work in a really agile fashion. Agile is a very sort of like piece by piece sort of approach where you do a little tiny pieces start to finish, as opposed to like doing all of the, what you need to do requirements and then sort of stepping down through every piece. So that's maybe a bit detailed for everybody, but I think the ideas that there are more than one type of project management is really valuable, and understanding which places and locations those are the best to approach them in, and also understanding what the outcomes of your project are, right? So if you're somebody who's starting with a project and you just sort of accept the outcomes are to be what they're supposed to be, and your job is just to kind of check all the boxes, that's not the style of project management that I really espouse with my team or with myself. So Bishaki's talked about like finding your voice. For a lot of folks, a project manager just facilitates. But on my teams and the type of project management style that I like to work with, you also have a voice from the beginning. You're a part of that outcome. You're a part of that team, and you have a really unique position. And you see things in a really unique way. And so it's important for you to kind of bring that aspect of yourself to your job, and not be just a facilitator, and be a part of that outcome and solution.
Awesome. Thank you. Claire or Bashaki, anyone of you want to add something more on to any misconceptions? I see an unmute over there from Bashaki.
Yeah, I really agree with what Dalit told, and I would just like to continue from there, like finding, because you are uniquely positioned to see all the parties what they're saying, and sometimes you are the voice who are listening to everything, so you always feel free to voice what you feel, and maybe that make that one or two mistakes that won't cost you a lot, but then you might know something about the process, or they might know something from you, because it's at the end of the day, it's an interaction from which the company or your team is growing. So always keep that open mind.
Awesome. Thank you. Claire, anything to add as well?
Not so well. So for me, it's kind of interesting because my maybe my focus is more into product management as well. And actually, that's a bit of a common misconception as well, that like product management and project management is the same. We both have the same abbreviation, so it's so understandable as PM everywhere. So, but then we also do have a good amount of overlap sometimes. There's kind of like the purest product management, but there's so few companies that actually do that as well. So especially when you're at a smaller company or even mid-size, there's going to be a lot of project management involved as well. So the product management is a bit more on the side of usually, although I'd be so curious to hear Dalit as well and Vaishaki about how it is at your companies. But product management is usually a little bit more about discovering the value and a bit closer to the UX process, and finding out what it is exactly that users want, what direction the company should go towards. And then the project management is a bit more in the execution stage, where you've already discovered what it is that you should do as well. I see some nods, so
Yeah,
it sounds like
we have
accurate.
We have project managers, we have product managers, we have program managers. So there's like different levels to each of those. We think of our product managers as the GMs of our product. So they're out there kind of deciding what the priorities might be and what the users are mostly interested in. But yeah, they're absolutely different disciplines with different approaches, different impacts to have on our product. But I think product management is something that's quite specific to software in a lot of cases. So I don't know that Bishaki would have the same. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, so the company I work, we are a research technology. So we partner with a lot of the big companies, like we partner with Sanofi, and we partner with AstraZeneca and Pfizer and these kind of companies. So we work in conjunction with them to develop the technology and take it to more in the industrial, or in the manufacturing stages. So it's not always the product that we are working on, it's kind of more of a technology. So it's a bit different in approach than what Claire just spoke about. Hilde, I mean Dalit, who has a more of a kind of hybrid kind of offering. So it's a bit different. It's more of a service. It's more of a technical technology kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I was a couple of years in tech before I heard about product management as well.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of something that's nestled in there as a niche.
Oh my gosh, that was very exciting. I love the conversation between everybody because I think that's super valuable as well. Thank you so much for that. I think another really big question that a lot of that I personally am curious as well. But one big question is, what is a big challenge that maybe that you've overcome? Kind of when you've been starting your career, or even now that you foresee in the industries that you work in. Baishaki, if you wanted to give it a shot first. I know it's a big question.
Yeah, I think every company has its own way of working. So when I started as in project management in a medical communications company, so we had a very busy environment. So a lot of work coming in, and often the details were not kind of carved in the beginning. So you just get a one liner or two liner as the scope, and you don't know what exactly the scope is, and you're too young, and I mean you're just new into it. You don't know what are all the specifics. So sometimes you commit the timeline, you commit, okay, I can do it in a week's time, in a month's time, but maybe all the things that required might take you couple 2 or 3 months. So then you're in a false position like that. So understanding the scope of work, that is, I think, something, a difficulty. You might not understand the entirety of it in the very beginning. It's just with experience you will understand each work and the scope it has and all the details. So it's a learning process. So at least, yeah, that's the difficulty I had in the beginning, to understand what scope of work will be for each work.
Thank you. Claire, what about you? Any challenges that you've had? I think you mentioned about coding first of all, but yeah, any challenges kind of now or in the past as you've been working up to your career?
Yeah, I think that a constant one, and I've heard this a lot from some others as well. So coming from a non-traditional tech background, just the knowledge that you don't have to be technical, or there's even a kind of debate about what is being technical for being a product manager. There are actual titles out there which are, technical product manager as well. So that kind of has a different way to measure it. But basically, you don't have to know how to code to be doing project management. That you can, understand the technology without kind of getting into the details of it. I think that is often something that I know that I wouldn't have thought that I could get into it. Maybe just like as I graduated from art school. I didn't think that I would get here, but here I am.
There you go. Thank you. And then last but not least, Dallas, what about you? Any challenges that have come up throughout your career or even now?
Yeah, well, we're glad Claire made it. How does that sound? I guess for myself, the challenges that I faced were kind of mid-career, to be perfectly honest, or mid my current career might be the best way to put it. I was always really good at what I did, and it started to become a bit of a challenging point for me, where I started to recognize that I had a hard time redoing work. previously. So, I would create a process and I would put my heart and my soul and like everything I had into creating this particular process for a project or for an outcome. And then, we would run it for a couple of years and, people would start saying like, well, maybe we should recheck this. Maybe we should try again. And instead of hearing like, wow, that was a great job. Let's see what else you can do now that things have changed. I heard that wasn't good enough in the first place. That wasn't, you did it wrong on the first point. So I just spent a lot of time to really understand why that was for myself and what it was that I could do about it. And I had this really big kind of couple of years where I was really doing a lot of soul searching and actually therapy and coaching and a bunch of different stuff, and really recognized that for me my mindset was fixed. It was like, I'm good at this because I'm good at this because I'm good at this, instead of, hey, I'm good at a lot of things and maybe I start at a better baseline in some places than others, but no matter what you do, if you practice, you can continue to grow and learn. And so, that shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset for me was really hard fought. But it's nice because if you do have a big challenge like that, then it's also like hard won. Like, I believe that that's pretty core to the tenets of how I operate now, because it was such a big deal for me to get through. So actually, I hope it wasn't a mid-career crisis, if you will, because that would mean that I'm like almost ready to be done. And so either that or I'm retiring soon. I don't know it, but yeah, that's been one of the biggest challenges for me, is just recognizing that I have more to offer than what I was born with and what I started with. I can grow and learn.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's a really lovely sentiment. So we are getting up to kind of the last few minutes of our question session. So what I think I'll do is I'll do 3 rapid fire questions, one to each mentor, and then one super, super big question to everybody that I'm sure everyone is thinking as well. So Claire, I'll do a super rapid fire question to you. Tell me something cool about your job that most people don't know.
I would say that I get to interview users, and that the ways in which I need to ask questions and then also kind of hear the answers is very investigative and not always obvious. I had a couple of mentors earlier on that kind of showed me the ropes, and I thought I knew what I was doing, and I did not, because they were doing something kind of magical. And there's really an art to it, but there's also a science that can be learned.
Awesome. Thank you. Vaishaki, what are some of the ways that people from your industry are making a difference in the world?
Well, I'll say that research is definitely and when research is kind of managed properly and it's time bound, like you see the vaccine that was done in a record time. That's an example of how project managers working in all these companies, they worked, you know been long days and nights to make it happen within a timeline. So sometimes it is the creative thing about research that we go about, but at the same time timelines is crucial when you're working to save lives. And I'll say, this is one thing that's in my field, and as project management in research background is going to help, because there are so many timely cures required in cancer, in neurology, in cardiovascular diseases. That's very very required that those are the need of the moment. And I believe that all the project managers who are working in research or pharma industry, they are working hard to make a difference by keeping things on time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then finally, Dallas, what's something you are excited to see happen in your industry or your field in the next 5 years, let's say?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to talk about anything technical. I'm going to talk a lot about the DE&I focus that I think a lot of companies are coming up with. So something super exciting that's happening at Hootsuite is just this increased and renewed focus on DE&I. If you're not sure what that means diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I think that that's a really exciting prospect for a lot of tech companies to think about. And I guess the other thing that I'm excited about this is that it's not just like a how you look or what gender or any of those type of things. It's really about how you think as well. So if you imagine we have all of this like machine learning and all of these algorithms that are being built out by developers, across the world. And when I think about this, it really requires people who have different approaches and who come from different positions to be able to create algorithms that can, give these types of machine learning life in a different way. And so I guess the message and the thing that I'm most excited about is like telling people, like, if you think differently, like, we need you. If you look differently, we need you. If you have a difference of opinion, we need you. Like, I think especially just with how incredibly pervasive these algorithms are going to become, just people from every different background and walk of life and thought pattern and that type of thing are going to be needed to create the very best algorithms to help us move forward. And so I think that I'm just excited about the opportunity for everybody in these type of career paths who might not have considered it before.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. And then the final question that I have for everybody to answer is what advice would you give a 14 to 16-year-old? So just so happens to be the age range that we're chatting with today. What advice would you give them, give somebody who is interested in your line of work? So Daleth, we'll go back around this way to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I guess I would just sort of add to what I said before, like, just because you don't feel like you're the kind of person that would fit into these types of organizations, like, that absolutely, means that, what I should say is that you shouldn't consider yourself out of bounds or not appropriate for these types of positions. Like, you look at what Claire did coming into the industry, like, her experience and her background and her approach is really valuable. People who have these really fantastic, wonderful degrees like Baishaki, like, that's so cool. But also people who don't, people who have industry experience or who have a different kind of approach. So my message to sorry, I think I got cut off there. My message to 14 to 16-year-olds is, like, please, consider these industries, give it a try, even if you're not sure that it's for you. Give it a try and see if you love it. That's sort of what I ended up doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Baishaki, same question to you.
So my nuggets of advice will be to believe in yourself, and the technical skills is important. You focus on that and you gain that, but at the same time, I will say, get be determined in what you want to do, and that will give you the strength what you want to pursue. Not, I mean, there are many people who are coming from very, they have not been good in, say, in certain areas, but then they went into science and they created new discoveries that changed the world. So believe in yourself, and that's going to take you through. No, let nobody tell you that you can't do it.
Awesome. Such a
Yeah.
lovely nugget of advice. Thank you. And finally, to round us off, Claire.
Yeah, I would say follow your passion, because you have so much of the drive and like so much of the skills that can follow that passion. So you can learn anything if you're passionate about the subject. I think that's basically how a part of how I got in as well, was just that I was organizing events on the side. They were things that I really believed in. There were art shows, there were social causes, and I wanted to do more of that in my day-to-day job. And this was part of how I found that. And you can learn the ropes basically. Maybe it's in that growth mindset that Dallas was talking about earlier as well. There's so many skills that can be learned, and you just need to kind of find your way to it. And yeah, follow your passions. You'll get to lots of interesting places, and it's never quite where you end up, but in that cheesy way is the path that you take.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our mentors today, to Claire, Baishaki, and Daleth. I personally learned lots. I think it's so interesting how all of you come from such different backgrounds and then the roles that you are in now, but you still have so many kind of similar shared experiences and nuggets of advice to give to everybody. So it was really, really nice hearing your discussion together and kind of those commonalities. So I really appreciated it. And I'm sure everyone at home did. So just thank you to everybody at home for joining us today. And once again, thank you to our mentors for being wonderful and sharing your time and experiences with all of us. So for the folks at home, remember that we have more sessions happening on Thursday and Saturday. So be sure to take a look at what we have planned for you and plan what sessions you want to attend. Awesome, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.